Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Knits. My name is Amy and here I talk about all things knitting, and today's video is a book review of the book Memory Lane by Claudia Quintanilla. Memory Lane is Claudia's latest published book with Lina Publishing, and in this video I'm going to be overviewing the book, going through each of the patterns it includes, and then at the end I'll be summarizing whether or not I think this book is a good pick for you. So if you've had an interest in Memory Lane but not quite sure what it's all about or if it's a good fit for you, stick around and you'll learn all about it. Memory Lane is a knitting pattern book written by Claudia Quintanilla, and if you're unfamiliar with Claudia, she has a lot of knitting patterns and a couple of books published under her sleeve. She is also the owner of Eweknit Craft, which is a yarn store in Toronto, Canada, and Eweknit did gift me this book, just to disclose, but of course all opinions that I'll be sharing in this video are my own. This book, Memory Lane, is subtitled Embellished Knits to Cherish because it is all about embellishing your knitwear. This knitting pattern book's main focus is to teach you and encourage you to embellish otherwise basic knitwear, to infuse them with things that connect you to memories or deeper meanings in life. There are several different embellishment techniques touched upon in this book, including embroidery, beading, and lace. This book features 19 patterns that are exclusive to the book, so you won't be able to purchase the patterns separately online anywhere. It is available currently in English, in softcover only. There's 200 pages in this book, and I looked online and it looks like currently it's only available through small distributors and local yarn stores online. I've not seen this on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, so definitely check out your local shops first. I've also seen it for a range of prices, anywhere from $30 US to $42 US, so definitely browse around if you're looking for this book. The majority of the patterns in this book are garments, and they are all graded to fit a minimum bust circumference of 60 inches or 152 centimeters. That gives about 8 to 9 different sizes for each garment. And one thing that surprised me, not all 19 patterns in this book are knitted. There is one crocheted piece, and some of the patterns include some crochet as well. So the majority are knit, but there are some aspects of different crafts in there as well. So we'll go over each of the patterns individually in just a few moments. Besides the patterns in this book, there is not too much else. There is a few pages at the beginning of a preface from Claudia explaining her inspiration and background for writing these patterns. There is an abbreviation list so you know what you're looking at in each of the patterns, but then you just get straight into the patterns and the photography. So you're just getting the 19 patterns in here. With that, let's dive into the patterns. The first pattern in this book is Dorada, which is a top-down, seamlessly knit sweater. It features all over stockinette stitch and embroidered golden butterflies that are added after the knitted piece is finished. The shaping of the sweater includes a crew neck, 1x1 rib details, and there are seamless sleeves that mimic a satin sleeve, so you have some short row shaping to shape those sleeve caps. The sweater is recommended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches of positive ease or 0 to 5 centimeters, and the recommended yarn is 1 fingering weight yarn. They used Assayer Spinny, held with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair. They used silk mohair by Assayer. The suggested needles for the body are 3.5 millimeters or US 4. In addition to the golden embroidered butterflies that contain some beading, there's also a ribbon accent that is sewn on to the inside of the sleeve at the end as well. So I think this gives a really beautiful feminine vibe to the sweater. I love the color choice of the cream sweater with the golden accents. Of course, you can customize the colors however you want, but I just really like the effect of the glow of the mohair, the golden butterflies, and the ribbon. It's a really beautiful piece. The next pattern is Konacaste, which is an all-over lace cardigan. This is a V-neck cardigan. All of the pieces are worked flat separately, and you seam all of the pieces together at the end. There's an all-over lace pattern that is charted in the book, and it's hard to see in the photos, but this cardigan does feature buttons as well. They're very small and go along the 1x1 ribbed button band. This cardigan is intended to be worn with 5 to 8 inches of positive ease, which is 12.5 to 20.5 centimeters, and the suggested yarn is a lace weight yarn. They used Baby Yak Lace by M Yak, which is a 100% yak yarn, and the suggested needle size for the body is 3.25 millimeters or US 3. I really like the streamlined look of this cardigan. I am a bit hesitant to knit it myself because it is lace weight, and I've never knit an entirely lace weight garment before, but it looks like it has a lot of drape and is something that can be easily worn in many different outfits. Olympia is an all-over stockinette crew neck sweater that's worked from the top down. It features a keyhole detail in the back that is secured with a wide ribbon that you add into the sweater at the end. It's recommended to be worn with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease, and the suggested yarn is 2 strands of lace weight mohair held together. The yarns that they used in the sample piece were Mohair Bliss by Pasquale. And the suggested needle size for the body of this sweater is 3.75 millimeters or US 5. The look of this final sweater is really simple, but it's really elegant, which I really like. I like how the embellishment on this is that ribbon detail, which you don't really see until you turn around. I think it's very subtle, but very beautiful. Granada is a sweater that uses both knitting and crochet to create this beautiful piece. The body is knit first from the top down, and the sleeves are crocheted on, and the collar that you see has an option of being crocheted separately and worn as a cowl on top, or you can choose to crochet the collar and then sew it on at the end. This sweater is intended to be worn with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease or 5 to 10 centimeters, and the suggested yarn that they use is a lace weight 100% silk yarn, which they use Canoe by Ito. Held with a lace weight silk mohair, they use Sensai by Ito. The suggested knitting needle size for the knitted body of this sweater is 3.5 millimeters or US 4, and the suggested crochet hook size is a 2.75 millimeter or a US C hook. This is a really creative way to combine 2 different crafts. If you both knit and crochet, I think this would be a really fun one to try. And if you only knit but have never crocheted, I think this one could be pretty attainable, as the crochet portions just use 2 stitches, the double crochet and the crochet bobble stitch. Tekla is a sweater that features subtle embellishments that are included in the lace portion on the sleeves. It's knit top down seamlessly with mimicked satin sleeves that are shaped using short rows, and it features a crew neckline with 1x1 ribbing. This sweater is intended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches of positive ease or 0 to 5 centimeters, and the intended yarn is a fingering weight wool held with a lace weight silk mohair. The yarn that they used in the blue sample shown here was Knitting for Olive merino, held with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. The suggested needle size is 3.5 millimeters or a US 4. Now the body of this sweater is knit with the wool and the mohair held together, but the sleeves are knit with just the mohair held double, which I think is a really nice effect and a different type of fabric style to a sweater. The lace portion for the sleeves is charted. The next sweater pattern is called Margarita, and Margarita is a top-down seamless sweater that's knit with 2 strands of silk mohair held together, and there is subtle beading embellishments that are added at the end of the project. It features a wider boat neckline and 2x2 rib details. It's intended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches or 0 to 5 centimeters of positive ease, and the yarn suggestion is 2 strands of lace weight silk mohair. They used Kid Silk Mohair by Kokon in this sample. You do also need a spool of 100% silk thread, which they use to knit into those garter ridges across the chest, and then later you add the beads with the same silk thread on top of those garter ridges. The suggested needle size for this pattern is 3.5 millimeters or US 4. I really like the shaping on this sweater. I feel like the boat neckline and the combination with these satin sleeves that are shaped with short rows looks really nice and elegant, and I really like the subtle beading detail that's featured on both the front and the back of the sweater. Monarcha is a top-down raglan style sweater that features a folded neckband and features an embroidery motif of butterflies that is embroidered using silk mohair and metallic thread and beads. The sweater is knitted first, holding a strand of fingering weight wool held with a lace weight silk mohair together. The suggested yarns that they use include British 4-ply by Les Garçons, held with mohair silk by Les Garçons in the navy color. This sweater is intended to be worn with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease or 5 to 10 centimeters, and is suggested to be knit with 3.5 millimeter needles or US 4. There is some color work knitting at the bottom hem of the sweater where you alternate colors for the 1x1 ribbed, and at the end you embroider that beautiful butterfly motif which is drawn out in the book for you to follow. Aureliano is an all-over colorwork sweater featuring a circular yoke and no more than 2 colors at a time per round. There are 4 colors used total in the sweater, and it is knit entirely with strands of lace weight silk mohair. You hold 2 strands together for the project. It's intended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches of positive ease or 0 to 5 centimeters, and the suggested needle size is 3.5 millimeters or a US 4. I think this is a great canvas to play around with many different color combinations, as there are up to 4 different colors. I feel like you can get really creative with trying something new and unique or just sticking to your favorite color combo. I really like the haze that this sweater has because it's knit entirely out of lace weight silk mohair, and you don't really have the super crisp stitch definition that a lot of colorwork patterns usually encourage. So I feel like this is a different type of pattern that is a really cool finished look. The next pattern is called Frida, and it is a top-down tank that is knit in all-over stockinette stitch with I-cord details. After you finish knitting the piece, you make these beautiful flowers out of ribbon and beads and sew them on at the end. This tank top is recommended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches or 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease and is knit with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair. The yarn that they used in this sample piece is Premia by Lamana in the color Bordeaux. The suggested needle size for the body is 3.5 millimeters or US 4. There are instructions at the end of the pattern about how to make the flowers out of the ribbon with some drawn diagrams, and I think this is also a really unique piece that you wouldn't often see in the knitwear world, and I think it would be really fun to play with different color combinations for the flowers and the main body. This next pattern is a colorwork sweater called Azul. Azul is a top-down raglan with short rows to shape the back neck, and it is knit with 5 colors total to create this beautiful flowing colorwork garment. The suggested yarns for this pattern includes 1 strand of fingering weight wool held with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair for each of the 5 colors. It looks like in their sample here they used combinations of Sunday by Sanus Garn held with tin silk mohair by Sanus Garn, or Knitting for Olive Merino held with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. It's recommended to be worn with 2 to 4 inches of positive ease or 5 to 10 centimeters. The suggested needle size for this pattern for the body is a 4 millimeter or a US 6 needle. The overall sweater looks stunning and a lot more complex than it might be to knit. The colorwork chart itself is very simple. You only are doing colorwork with 2 colors at a time, and it repeats itself over the entire sweater. So I really love the details on this sweater. I really like how the raglan has that one contrast color throughout, and it also features a folded neckband. The next pattern, El Naranjo, is a circular yoke sweater knit from the top down and features colorwork in the yoke and sleeves. You do add beads to the colorwork at the end of the sweater after it's all finished being knit and blocked. The sweater is knit in fingering weight yarn. The 2 yarns that they used were Tavini by Asayer and Mondim by Rosa Pomar. The suggested needle size for the sweater is 3.25 millimeters or a US 3. The sweater is recommended to be worn with 4 to 9 inches of positive ease or 10 to 23 centimeters, and there are written instructions on how to add the beading at the end of the project. Rosa is an oversized cardigan that is knit from the top down seamlessly and then is embroidered with a rose motif at the end that also includes some beading. The cardigan body and sleeves are worked first from the top down. It is kind of hard to tell from the photos what the construction of the sleeve and the shoulder are. It looks like a similar sort of short row shaped sleeve cap that sort of mimics a set-in sleeve. The button band is knit in 1x1 rib and is added at the end of the project, and there are buttonholes and pockets featured in this cardigan as well. It's recommended to be worn with 9 to 13 inches of positive ease or 23 to 33 centimeters. The suggested yarn is a fingering weight yarn held with a lace weight silk mohair. They used Tavini by Asayer held with silk mohair by Asayer. The suggested needle size for the body is a 4 millimeter needle or US 6. Pepita is a stockinette sweater that features a crocheted collar and ribbon accents. The sweater itself is knit top down with stockinette stitch and short rows to shape the sleeve caps. The suggested yarn for the sweater body is a lace weight yarn held with a lace weight silk mohair. The yarn that they use in this project is Modena by Lamana held with Premia by Lamana. For the collar, it is crocheted with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair, and you crochet the beads into the collar as you make it. The collar is then sewn on to the knit sweater at the end of the project. The sweater is recommended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches of positive ease or 0 to 5 centimeters, and the suggested needle size for the sweater body is a 3.5 millimeter or a US 4. The suggested crochet hook size is a 2.75 millimeter hook. In addition to the knit and crochet pieces, there is an accent of ribbon that goes through the collar, as well as ribbon accents that are sewn to the inside of the sleeve cuffs as well. You might also notice in this sweater pattern there's also ribbon flowers that are added to the outsides of the sleeve cuffs at the end. These are ribbon flowers made the exact same way as featured in the Frida pattern that was spoken about earlier in the book. Gardenia is a top-down raglan sweater that features pearl beaded accents at the sleeve cuffs. This features a folded 1x1 rib neckband and a beautifully elegant puffed sleeve detail. It's recommended to be worn with 2 inches or 5 centimeters of positive ease, and the suggested yarns for this pattern is a fingering weight wool held with a lace weight silk mohair. They use Knitting for Olive Merino held with Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair. The suggested needle size for the body of this sweater is 3.75 millimeters, which are US 5. Maria is a sweater that features colorwork and beaded accents that are added at the end to the colorwork. This sweater is worked seamlessly from the top down with short row shaped sleeve caps. It features a boat neck style neckline and has a little bit of shaping at the waist. The yarns used in this pattern is 1 strand of lace weight yarn held with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair. There are 2 colors total for this sweater. The yarns that they used were Leona by Amelia and Philemone, held with Daphne by Amelia and Philemone. The sweater is suggested to be worn with 0 to 2 inches of positive ease, or 0 to 5 centimeters, and the suggested needle size for the body is 3.5 millimeters, or US 4. As with all the patterns in this book, the color work is charted, and there are some written instructions on how to add the beads at the end. Golondrina is a top-down knitted tee that features embroidered swallows and a wreath image at the top of the chest of the sweater. It features 2 different colors and subtle lace accents in the collar and the sleeve cuffs. The body of the sweater is knit in 1 strand of fingering weight yarn held with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair. They used Pebble by Madeline Tosh, held with Silk Cloud by Madeline Tosh for the body, and the collar and the sleeve cuffs are knit with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair held single. They used Mohair Silk by Les Garçons. This tee is recommended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches of positive ease, or 0 to 5 centimeters, and the suggested needle size for the body is 3.5 millimeters, or US 4. A common recurrence in this book, the sleeves are shaped at short rows to give that mimicked set-in sleeve look, and the embroidery is added on top of the sweater after you're done blocking it. There is also beading included in the embroidery as well. The next pattern in this book is the only completely crocheted pattern, and it is called Corazon. This collar is crocheted with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair, and they used Mohair Bliss by Pasquale. The collar is worked from the top down, and the pattern is completely written out, so there's no chart for this crocheted collar. You do add the beads at the end, so you don't use the beads as you're crocheting it, you sew them on at the end and you finish it off with the ribbon. You can wear this collar as its own piece, or you can be encouraged to sew it on to a different sweater of yours. Narciso is a top-down knitted cardigan that features a lace and bobble pattern going down the center of the cardigan. It also features some crocheted accents as well. This cardigan is recommended to be worn with 0 to 2 inches, or 0 to 5 centimeters of positive ease. The suggested yarn is a fingering weight yarn held with a lace weight silk mohair. They use Spinny by Assayer, held with silk mohair by Assayer. The suggested needle size for the body of this sweater is a 3.5 millimeter, or US 4. And the crochet hook that used is a 2.75 millimeter hook. This cardigan is knit seamlessly and the lace pattern is charted. The last pattern in this book is called Wings, which is a top-down knitted all over lace and beaded sweater. This is knit with 1 strand of lace weight silk mohair, and the beads are added with a crochet hook as you are knitting the piece. The yarn that they use in this pattern is Sensei by Ito in the color Charcoal, and the suggested needle size for the body is a 2.5 millimeter, or US 1. In addition to the all-over lace patterning in this sweater that is the cover photo for the book, it also features a very striking knit collar that has sharp points and is a nice contrast to the all-over lace of the body. This sweater is intended to be worn with 4.5 to 9 inches of positive ease, or 11.5 to 23 centimeters, and the lace pattern is charted. It looks like it has a very boxy, flowy fit with a slight puff to the sleeves. So those are all of the patterns included in Memory Lane. So now let's look at those as a whole and see if they are a good fit for you. So with 19 patterns in this book, the majority of them are long sleeve pullovers, including a total of 13 long sleeve pullovers. There are a few one-offs in the pattern, like 1 tank top, 1 short sleeve t-shirt, and 3 cardigan patterns. So if you like knitting garments, if you like long sleeve pullovers, definitely you might have an interest in this book. If you're someone who doesn't really want all of those long sleeve pullovers, might not be of too much interest to you. I think it's important to note the gauges of most of the garments in this book are like a sport weight to a light DK, and then fingering weight. You probably heard as I was listing through all of the patterns that a lot of them use a lace weight silk mohair held with a fingering weight wool and like a 3.5 millimeter to a 4 millimeter needle. So if that is your sweet spot for knitting and you like knitting that gauge, then this book definitely has a lot of patterns for you to choose from. If you're someone who likes chunkier knits, if you're more of a worsted weight knitter, or you're not really into committing a lot of time to those sport weight and fingering weight garments, this book might not be a great fit for you just because the majority of them are very lightweight in fabric. With that being said, this book does not have, I feel like, a lot of variety. I feel like it's very one-noted noted with its aesthetic. It's very one noted in the types of patterns it's providing, mostly long sleeve pullovers, and very one noted with the gauges and yarn types that they're using in the sweater. So if you're someone who really likes using mohair in your garments, because I think pretty much every single pattern in here has mohair for that halo look, if you're looking for a book that has that very feminine and ethereal, maybe even cottagecore aesthetic, this book definitely provides that. But if you're someone who likes a lot of variety in your book, you want to have a wide range of different patterns that you can pick from, then this book might not be the best fit for you. I think this book has an excellent selection of patterns if you are really into that feminine aesthetic. I mean, some of the designs in there were just stunning, and the use of beads, I feel like Claudia has really pioneered the use of beads in knitting lately. Not that she's the first one to do it, but I feel like this book might start a trend of adding beads to color work or adding beads to lace work. I just feel like it just adds so much extra like literal sparkle and just also some depth and dimension to knitwear that I feel like I'm not really seeing that often in the knitting world. So really unique and really creative patterns in here that I think are kind of inspiring me to maybe have those ideas of adding embellishments to my knitting. I think it's a great starting point for having inspiration in other projects as well. I will say, from flipping through the way that the patterns are written in this book is definitely intended for well-experienced knitters. I would not recommend this to a beginner garment knitter. This book does not really hold your hand. It's strictly just the pattern. And I will add, I think that this book might be a challenge for someone who doesn't embroider. I am someone who doesn't do embroidery, so just flipping through the directions in this book for how to add the embroidery for some of the more complex patterns, I think I would struggle a bit. There are no video tutorial links in here, which I kind of wish maybe that would be something to consider. I think the instructions in here kind of have an understanding that you might already know how to do embroidery, so I would keep that in mind if you're excited about the embroidery patterns in this book. It's not really going to hold your hand through it. It just says, you know, make this motif, and you have to make that motif on your own. Hello, quick note post-filming. I do have news that Claudia and her team are working on video instructions for the embroidery in Memory Lane, so that's really exciting. She currently doesn't have an official release date of those, but ideally they would come out within the next few months or after the next few months, so just wanted to stick that in the video because I thought that was important to share. I do think this book does have a good variety of the level of embellishment in your knits that you might want. I do really enjoy how there are some very basic knitted pieces that just have subtle accents, like Olympia with that ribbon, I think is a great starting point for this book. If you know you might want to get up to the complex lace patterns in here, but you want to start simple, Olympia is a great place to start. I also think if you're interested in the beading on the sweater patterns in here, I like how some of them are color work patterns where you add the beads on top of the color work, so it's kind of like a clear point of like, oh, I'm putting a bead on this stitch, and it's very obvious and a little bit simpler than something like Monarcha with the butterflies that you kind of have to freehand on your sweater, and so I feel like placement for that might be a little bit tricky. Some of my favorite patterns in this book include Margarita, Narciso, Olympia, and El Naranjo. I could really see myself getting into those patterns. I personally am not a big color work knitter, but lately I've definitely been feeling the pull to add some more color work projects to my rotation and to my wardrobe, and I feel like the idea of adding beads to color work seems so fun, and I really like the inspiration to add ribbon to the inside of sleeve cuffs, to add some basic embellishments like crocheted scalloped edges. So I think there are some specific sort of embroidery motifs used in this book, like the swallows on the embroidered t-shirt, but you don't have to embroider swallows if that doesn't really have any meaning or it doesn't really interest you. I think it's a great pattern to knit the base pattern and then find your own embroidery motif that means something to you and add that to the pattern at the end. So as a whole, this book is really stunning to flip through. I think if you're into the aesthetic, if you're into the advanced type of knitting patterns, definitely a good pick. If you're someone who is on the more beginner side of garments and you're not really quite ready to dive in, maybe hesitate to buy this book until you have a little bit more experience. Also, I hope the pattern previews were helpful for you to sort of see the overall aesthetic. There definitely are a lot of very unique patterns in here that I don't really think there are comparable patterns out there that you could use instead. From a monetary perspective, this book, like I said earlier in the introduction, retails for about $30 to $40 US, and I was just flipping through Claudia's pattern library. She usually sells patterns for $9 US per pattern, so if you're looking strictly at the dollar value for this book, if you knit at least 4 patterns from here, you will get your monetary value out of purchasing it. So that's my overview of Memory Lane, Embellished Knits to Cherish by Claudia Quintanilla. I hope that this review was helpful to understand if you think this is a good pick for you to add to your knitted book library. If you are interested in purchasing the book, I will link some online shops below that ship it. Definitely check out your local yarn store as well. Thank you, Unit Toronto, for gifting me my copy, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye.